and the judges can introduce themselves.
Well, first of all, congratulations on being here. We're excited to talk to you today. My name is Ali Khan. I am a lawyer in Chicago, as well as an alum of the program, representing Illinois at the national competition in 1998.
My name is Ben Glickman. I'm an attorney with the California Attorney General's Office. I'm also an alumnus of the program. I represented California back in 1995. So congratulations on being here, and we look forward to chatting with you.
Good afternoon. I'm Dan Taubman. I'm a senior judge on the Colorado Court of Appeals in Denver, Colorado. I'm not an alumnus of the program, but I've been involved with We the People for many years. So we look forward to hearing your presentation this afternoon.
Can you please introduce yourselves?
Good afternoon, judges. We are Unit 3, and we'll be discussing how the Constitution has been changed to further the ideals contained in the Declaration of Independence. We'd like to thank you all for being here this afternoon. We'd also like to thank our coaches, Judith Miller and Janet Phillips, our mentor, Yana Paris, and our teacher, Sadie Adams. My name is Claire.
My name is Ellie.
My name is Matt.
And my name is Miley. Thank you. We're now ready for your question.
Wonderful. So as no surprise, question 2. There is nothing I dread so much as a division of the Republic into 2 great parties, each arranged under its leader and in opposition to each other. What issues led to the formation of the original political parties? To what extent have those issues persisted in American politics, American political parties? What are the advantages and disadvantages of a unified or divided government? You may begin.
The founders viewed political parties with distrust. George Washington expressed his fear in his farewell address that political parties, quote, are likely to become potent engines by which cunning, ambitious men will be enabled to subvert the power of the people, unquote. However, some, like Thomas Jefferson, thought that, quote, men by their constitutions are naturally divided into 2 parties, unquote, a reality that government must accommodate. In the end, even the founders who most feared political parties went on to participate in them, demonstrating their inevitability.
The issues that led to the formation of the original parties, notably represented by Hamilton and Jefferson, included the power of the nation in the name of national security. Hamilton first argued that a strong national government was necessary to deal with national problems, while Jefferson supported a greater role for the states.
The founders were also divided by economic visions. Hamilton wanted to create a national bank to strengthen the economy, arguing it was appropriate under the Necessary and Proper Clause. Jefferson opposed it and disagreed with Hamilton's interpretation, claiming, quote, the Constitution allows only the means which are necessary, not those which are merely convenient, unquote.
Meanwhile, foreign policy disagreements emerged about the Napoleonic Wars. Some of the founders, including Hamilton, thought the United States should side with Britain, while others, including Jefferson, thought the country should aid France. The latter group created the Democratic Republican clubs and eventually took the name Republicans, while their opponents took the name Federalists. While these are the first political parties, there wasn't yet a party system because both parties saw each other as a threat, but not as a long-term loyal opposition.
Finally, the national divide was deepened in 1798 by the Alien Sedition Acts of the Federalist Congress and President Adams. Republicans did not support these measures, especially after some were fined and arrested. While these specific disagreements are no longer relevant, the larger questions they represent are:
the balance of power between the states and federal government is an ongoing struggle, for example, in deciding how to address COVID-19. Competing economic visions are still with us, underlying debates about taxation and spending programs. Foreign policy disagreements have also persisted. A Pew Research Center study found that 70% of Democrats think improving relationships with allies is a priority, while only 44% of Republicans think so. Finally, the issues of national security and immigration continue to divide, as 41% of Republicans support reducing legal immigration, while only 14% of Democrats think so.
In a 2-party system, both unified and divided governments present advantages and disadvantages. When one political party controls both Congress and the executive branch, it is easier to enact legislation, shown by the recent American Rescue Plan, but the legislation may be passed without much discussion. A divided government may promote bipartisanship and more thorough debate, but it may also result in partisan gridlock, which prevents change and may cause presidents to resort to executive orders.
Our government might gain from some of these advantages while avoiding the disadvantages through a multi-party system. It could avoid gridlock, more truly represent our diverse society, free voters from the constraints of having to choose between only two parties, and reduce political gerrymandering. These changes could result from the proposed Fair Representation Act, a bill that would reform the way representatives are elected by implementing multi-member districts drawn by independent redistricting committees, where representatives would be elected by ranked choice voting. These changes could be the founding of a new, innovative, and fair system. Thank you. We are now ready for your questions.
Great. Let me ask you this. Do you believe, because this is an issue that's can be a hot button issue, do you believe that we should abolish the Electoral College?
Yes, we should, for a few reasons. One being that it disenfranchises many people, and additionally, it disproportionately disenfranchises people of color, and how some states that have a much higher, most of their population is white, have more of an impact than other states that have more people of color in their state. And they have less power. So it disenfranchises many people and disproportionately disenfranchises people of color.
An alternative to the Electoral College is to use ranked choice voting, which has been very successful in Denmark.
On the other hand, abolishing the filibuster, as you said, is a hot button issue and extremely controversial. So it would take a lot to convince people who are against abolishing the Electoral College to abolish it.
I'd like to respectfully disagree with my first teammate. Because the Electoral College is necessary for stronger representation and to ensure that states represented, especially smaller states, which would often not be visited or not have attention paid to them by presidential candidates if it weren't for the Electoral College.
Despite the issues of gridlock, there have been times when politicians of different parties have enacted bipartisan legislation. Can you give us some examples where that has occurred?
Yes, an extremely recent example actually of this week is the COVID-19 anti-Asian hate crime bill, which was passed almost completely bipartisan with only one opposition from the Republican Party. And this was a bill where it had overwhelming bipartisan support.
In addition, many of the environmental bills passed in the 70s under the Nixon administration were also passed with bipartisan support, such as the Clean Water Bill and the Clean Water Act and the Clean Air Act.
Additionally, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was also a bipartisan bill.
Great. So you've mentioned ranked choice voting a couple times now as a potential solution to some of the challenges that the two-party system causes. What are the pros and cons as you see them of the ranked choice voting system?
Some of the pros to ranked choice voting is that it allows voters to vote more freely and with their conscience than it would with regular plurality voting. It also means that if a voter's first choice ideal candidate doesn't get chosen, their vote isn't thrown away, and the way they ranked other candidates still plays a role in who's elected.
Additionally, a lot of the deep partisan divides we're experiencing today are caused by having to choose between two different parties. So by ranking candidates, you wouldn't have to align yourself with just one single party, and you could rank your candidates by candidates, not necessarily their political party.
On the other hand, as we've seen in San Francisco, where they have implemented ranked choice voting, that's made voter turnout go down. So if ranked choice, that's one of the cons of ranked choice voting, is that it's more complicated than our current system, so less people will vote.
Some would argue that it's anti-democratic in the sense that a candidate who led after the first round but only had a plurality, so had 40% of the vote, could end up losing the election even though he or she was the first choice for the most people. Is that anti-democratic?
No, that is not anti-democratic, because ranked choice voting accounts not only for the people's first choice, but also for their other preferences, such as their second and third choice. If somebody is favored by a percentage of the population, but the rest of the population strongly dislikes them, it shows that maybe they should not be the ideal candidate. And ranked choice voting allows candidates that are broadly supported across the entire population, rather than candidates that are just strongly supported by a smaller percentage.
Thanks.
Do you think that perhaps the country would be less partisan if we mandated that the president and vice president had to be from different parties?
This would most likely increase partisanship because of the competitiveness around elections, obviously. As we experienced in the 2020 election, people were it created even more partisanship because people were extremely competitive around which party they allied to. And
I'd like to respectfully disagree with my teammate. This would actually decrease partisanship because it would force compromise within the White House between different parties and actually force both parties to work together to get things done and force interaction between the different parties.
You told us the reasons why parties developed at the time of the framers. What party differences were there leading up to the Civil War?
one of the main party differences leading up to the Civil War was different parties taking a stance on slavery. This actually led to a lot of failed political parties, such as the Whig Party or the Know Nothing Party, who really couldn't take a stance on slavery or where the party stood on slavery.
These issues took place during our third party system with the emergence of the anti-slavery Republicans, and issues concerning the Civil War and the Reconstruction era divided the two Democrats and Republican parties. However, they were resolved with the Compromise of 1877.
Additionally, many of the original conflicts that led to the formation of the original political parties were still there at that time. Specifically, one of the big ones was the how much power the federal government should have and the relationship between the federal government and the states. And so that was still, a lot of the original issues were still relevant.
So you mentioned we're running out of time, but how would multi-member districts resolve some of the partisanship we see with the current system?
As we talked about ranked choice voting goes hand in hand with multi-member districts. So it can be argued before we can even have multi-member districts, we need to put in place. Sorry, may I finish my statement?
You may.
Put in place ranked choice voting, which, as we explained, helps heal some of the deep partisanship.
Thank you so much. And let's give the students a round of applause for their hard work.
First of all, again, congrats on being here. It was really good talking to you all. I know how much work you put into this, how much effort it takes to get here. So, really appreciate your time today. I really enjoyed listening to your prepared remarks. Easy to follow. I really liked the history you gave us, some of the connections to today's affairs that were similar to back then. I enjoy our free response discussion. You all participated. Every jumped in, you disagreed. Yeah, which I think are great things. I really like the examples. Some of the examples I hadn't heard today. I like the example when you mentioned Nixon and about the bipartisanship with the environmental laws. When you mentioned Denmark and the ranked choice voting, I just wanted to hear a little more, only because I truly don't know more about it. So I would love to just give me a little more information and really educate me on that. But overall, really, really nice job.
I also thought you did a very nice job. I liked your discussion about the reasons for the creation of the original political parties. I thought that was very thorough and comprehensive, and I thought that you did a nice job. I thought you had good information when you talked about different poll results as giving us contemporary evidence of the different views between the Democrats and Republicans. And I like the examples in answer to my question about compromise, as Ollie said about the environmental bills, but you also mentioned the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which I think is an example that people often refer to demonstrate bipartisanship. And you mentioned the recent bill just passed this week about Asian American and Pacific Islanders and anti-discrimination. When you were asked about the question about the difference between or what would happen if the president and vice president were different parties, you disagreed on that, and that showed you had thoughtful approaches to that. You might have mentioned the 12th Amendment, because before the 12th Amendment, that was exactly what the Constitution provided, that the person who came in second was the vice president in presidential elections. And then finally, I thought when I asked you the question about the party differences during the Civil War, you had a very comprehensive answer to that. You might have mentioned that you said that the difference, that one issue that persisted since the founders was the role of the federal government. Also, the difference in economic interest was another one that had persisted all the way to the time of the Civil War. But overall, I think you did a really nice job.
Yeah, I would echo everything that's been said so far. I thought the prepared remarks were very well done. I appreciated, starting with George Washington's farewell address, which is obviously directly responsive to the question, and then going through the different aspects of Hamilton and Jefferson's views kind of as a frame for that discussion worked really well. Likewise, I appreciated the ending and bringing in the Fair Representation Act and those two components as a way to resolve some of these issues, perhaps. My only real constructive feedback on the Q&A is I just don't always assume we know as much as you do, right? You are the experts in this field now. And so for things like you said that the Electoral College disenfranchises people, and particularly people of color, I might have liked to hear how. Why, can you show me why that's the case? And likewise for the ranked choice voting, tell me what it is, how it works, how it's worked in Denmark, I think was the country you mentioned, and that would make those answers even stronger to kind of show us the mechanics and how it actually might resolve some of the issues we were talking about. But that's a nitpick. I thought, it was clear you guys had done a lot of preparation and really knew the material. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck rest of today.
Yeah, good luck. Thank you.